Well, hello there and welcome back to the Vineyard Farmhouse. My name is Brian, for those of you that are new to the channel. And in the last video, we installed this beautiful 1924 Clawfoot Tub. It was completely restored and installed, and I'll be leaving the link to that in the description. In this video, we're going to be working on the vanity with a wood countertop and a drop-in sink. The first thing that we're going to need to do is run over to the barn and mill up some lumber. And that lumber came from the reclaimed rafters from the upstairs ceiling. Okay, seeing since this is a farmhouse, we've chosen to do a plank board countertop for the bathroom. I've numbered all my boards so that they're in the direction I want, and I strategically picked out how I wanted the knots. These are factory planed and jointed, but they're not 100% perfect, and I don't have the machinery to do that. So I'm going to do something a little bit unconventional, and I'm going to use a dark brown caulking between. That'll give a little bit of a flexibility. And perfect imperfection is what we're looking for. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is put some pocket holes in the back side of these boards. Alright, the jig's up. Time to start assembling this sucker. Okay, so now that all the pocket holes are drilled and all the boards are aligned, we can start putting the screws in. And don't worry about me using caulking, because I did it 4 years ago with the kitchen counter upstairs, and it still looks like the day I put it in. Alright, here we go. Let's see if this sucker fits. Looks like it fits exactly the way I want it to. There are details on the ends and on the backsplash, as well as the front. And you already saw me cut that piece, or pieces. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, now that all the joints are taped, this is where the table makers and such are not going to like it, because I'm going to be caulking the joints. You thought I was joking, but I'm not. Let's get to it. Now when I put the screws in, I want them to be only hand tight, so I'm going to be using a hand screwdriver. Okay, so this is the next day, and let me show you how I set it up. Last night, after caulking all the joints, I laid it topside down on what I know to be a very flat door. And then I clamped the ends to a straight board, both ends. And this old box of tile, I laid it across it, hold it down nice and flat. So let's get this apart and see how it turned out. Now it's time to do the fun part and scrape off all the squeeze out. Scrapey, scrapey. Now it's time for the more funner part. I get to take the tape off and see if it bled through the joints on the top side of the counter. Okay, so not exactly the way I wanted it to turn out. We got some tape stuck in the caulking. But that's okay. We're going to try to make this look a little bit more rustic anyway. I've got sanding to do and some other aging techniques. Not to mention, this is just the flat part of the counter. We got some building to do here. I always cut something like this just shy of the mark. Now I can finish it off with a handsaw. And now that the rough shape of this is established, we can start trimming this sucker out. So you don't have a protractor or a sliding bevel? Well, you could take 2 index cards and put them together like this. Tape them together. Flip them over like this. Connect your ruler from one corner to the next. And there you have it. That should be the perfect angle for your corner. Now I could transfer that angle to a scrap piece, which I would do anyway. Making that exactly what I need. And now because I know this angle and this angle are the same, only inverted, I can take these 2 scrap pieces that I made, put this one on this corner, and make that one hit to that corner, and there's the length I need for that little piece. Because I am using reclaimed lumber, and this side is the busier side with the angles, I can come over here where this board is not going to be long enough, and I can splice it with the same angle that I cut the other angles. Alright, so I brought the countertop in here, and now we're going to start working on it from the table. I have it all laid out in a rough fashion the way I want it. There's the pattern for the sink. Now I'm going to start affixing this bowl nose to the countertop, at least temporarily, so I can get my measurements off of it. So a few years ago I did a countertop for the kitchen upstairs, pretty much like this. And I used this plug and hole system. But before I start drilling into my bowl nose, I want to make sure that sucker's working good. So let's do some tests. So to achieve this, you're going to want to use the smaller bit to make the holes and the bigger bit to make the plugs. And the plugs that come from the bigger hole fit perfectly in the smaller hole. To some degree, I'm going to be placing these plugs randomly, but based on splices and nail holes, I'm going to have to make some exceptions for that. Remember, you're going to use a small bit in order to make the holes. I'm going to be putting a piece of tape around this as a stop guide so I don't go too deep on the bowl nose. Wow, look at this gnarly board. I just went and ripped this off of a section of the house where I don't need it. This is what the lumber looks like before I reclaimed it. But it's perfect for making plugs. I always use gloves for these boards because this will give you splinters just looking at it. It's a pain in the butt when these thick suckers get stuck in there. You have to wedge them out. Sometimes they come out easy, sometimes they don't. So the first thing I had to do is get these two pieces clamped to the front edge of the counter. They're going to kind of set the pace for how all the bowl nose fits. It's really starting to come together now. Alright, the bowl nose is affixed temporarily, exactly the way I want it. Now, I can cut these ends so I can put the sideboards on. So now that I got these end boards on, and this cut at a 45 degrees, I want to take another 45 degrees and bring it right to the peak of that bull nose and draw another 45. And then I'll be cutting that off just like that. All right, look at that little detail. That turned out exactly the way I wanted it. Everything is attached loosely at this point because I've made all my measurements and centered everything, including the template for the sink. Make sure you follow your instructions carefully. You want to cut on the solid line, not the dotted line. You do that and you're going to be crying because your sink will just fall through the hole. In order to transfer the template, I'm going to take this all in a rubber mallet, and I would say every inch, make yourself a mark. If you haven't already, make sure you've checked all your measurements and everything. You know the old saying, measure twice, cut once. And just like when you were a kid, you can take your template off here and do dot to dots. I think it's pretty clear here that we don't have to have a mark for the front. Drill yourself a starter hole. And you're ready to start jigging it. So here's the sink that we chose, made by Kohler. And here's the information if you would like to freeze frame that. And there's not a whole lot of hubbub. We can just go in there and test it. All right, there it is. Still have to router the edges, sand it, and stain it. But I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. It's gonna look really nice next to this Clawfoot tub. So I definitely have enough recorded for this video. So I decided to make a part 2, maybe even a part 3. But if you've been liking what you see on this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to smash that little bell button so you can be notified of the next videos to come. Bye for now. See you next time on the Vineyard Farmhouse.
Oh yeah? You're looking at me? What?